Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Nick Leeder, and I work for a company called PTC and head up their organization that helps customers understand the value and the impact our solutions are having on their business. It's great to have the opportunity to speak to you today. And in the next 20 minutes, I'm hopefully going to be able to bring to life how augmented reality, part of the PTC solution set, is going to be able to help organizations respond, recover, and thrive during this current crisis, and what many companies are either calling the new normal or the great reset. In the next 20 minutes, I'll be able to hopefully give you an overview of what AR is and how companies are utilizing those technologies to create real business value, and bring that to life through a number of real world examples. Now, today, many companies and customers I'm working with around the world are faced with a level of unprecedented challenges. Now, in this moment, many of you, I'm sure, are experiencing some of the same issues that we're even facing as a business. So, for example, the travel bans, the lockdowns, and the social distancing have really created a level of disruption that many organizations have never experienced in their life. And that is forcing companies to find new ways of working. As I said, this new normal. Now, many of these things are not just existing from a business side, but also making sure that the health and safety of their workforce, of your organization's workforce, is being looked after and managed in a way that is responsible with the COVID crisis. So in this time of chaotic change, and really rapid evolution of the ways of working and processes, our workforce and how our workforce maintain the quality and the agility is so important. Now, with that if I describe that as a cloud that's sitting over the top of most organizations right now, either a negative or positive cloud, by the way, because some organizations have really thrived in the COVID crisis. Most of our organizations and customers we work with are faced with three major challenges. The first challenge is around the skills and the skills gap and the worker and the aging workforce that most organizations have. Now, a recent survey showed that about 58% of the manufacturing workforce will be eligible for retirement into the next 1 to 2 years. Now, that means there is going to be a leaking of skills, a leaving of that knowledge out of the business. So how do you capture that wealth of experience and know-how and bring that on to the next generations of workers? And that next generation of workers, those younger employees, are going to be digitally native. A number of their motivations are going to be different to how perhaps the older workforce is. Being able to work with companies that have new technologies, not get frustrated with old technologies and how they work because of that digital native experiences they have in their day-to-day life outside of work as well. So they will look to work for companies that have that real essence of industrial transformation, the leaders in that area, and not necessarily the laggards. So on the people side, we have this challenge, but also on the product and process side, we have this challenge as well. Hopefully, this resonates with many of you on the call today, but the product complexity and therefore the complexity of the manufacturing processes that go behind that are also increasing significantly. So, the number of customizations and configurations and how that information is transposed and transferred from either the engineering or the sales realm into the manufacturing and later into the service realm are really, really critical. And finally, and we all know this one, customers' demands are changing. Many of our customers have high expectations of what our products can do. And the competition is fierce out there. So being able to create new offerings, new services that create clear differentiation is paramount to remain competitive now more than ever. So with these challenges, companies are now embracing digital transformation as the catalyst, the accelerator to bring forward new ways of working. And that new ways of working span across the entire value chain, but underpinning this ultimately is the way that digital transformation is enabling your workforce in your organization. We've seen many of the digital transformations focusing on information and systems and connecting those things together. The missing part of the equation often are the people. So think of augmented reality as the digital transformation of the workforce, of the people. And the people we have in our organization, as I'm sure has always been quoted, are the greatest asset to any organization, but they also create the greatest value, the greatest impact across that value chain. So, augmented reality touches every area, from how customers perhaps can move to more of a self-service support and training around your products, which creates differentiation. How that actually, because customers can no longer go to showrooms, or you cannot go to a customer to demonstrate your product, how can augmented reality bring that product to life in that sales and marketing environment? And how, for example, that information, the training, the traditional training, classroom-based training, how can that be transposed into new ways to get that information to your workforce? But whilst I talk about these other areas, PCC survey of our customers have clearly shown that AR does impact these areas, but the greatest areas of impact, the greatest areas of value, typically are within the manufacturing and service realm. And I'll bring to life some of these examples in those areas through the rest of this presentation. And particularly in those realms of manufacturing and service, as mentioned on the previous slide, the recent crisis has really highlighted the value of that distributed and mobile knowledge that you can gain through augmented reality in a way that brings it into context to the user. And what do I mean by that, really? Well, traditional ways of capturing critical information in the manufacturing service domain has been delivered through standard operating procedures and maintenance instructions. Now, these instructions are typically very difficult to create. They're difficult to capture the knowledge. They very quickly become out of date, and they're difficult to share. Often the information contained within those instructions are very difficult to actually interpret by the end user. They're not intuitive. And often the instructions therefore need to be trained out. Now, with augmented reality, we can start to bridge that gap. We can start to make that information into context and bring the information to life to the end user. So bringing that to life a little bit more in here, here's a little video that we show some of our technology working. But this is showing how we now capture the information and the instructions in a new way. So this is, experienced workforce capturing that knowledge I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, And this is a new way, this is the new normal, that how augmented reality can have a major role in capturing that information. But also then how, as we see later on in that video, pass that information on. We can capture that, and with very minimal editing that is very intuitive, create interactive and intuitive information and instructions to the workforce. And that can be passed on to the next generation of workforce, as you can see here. Now this person is getting the step-by-step instructions of how to do this operation. And actually the movements and critical information, safety information gets passed. Now, we've done a recent some work with one of our customers on a filter change. Now, when we compared the traditional methods of creating standard operating procedure and that change, we saw that they did that operation at 30% faster, but more important with so 30% faster with augmented reality. But more importantly, when compared to a traditional method of using the instructions versus the video, they made 0 errors. And that sort of result has been repeated many times for the customers that we work with, and the value points and the proof points. Now, what we've seen here then is now that augmented reality has moved from this kind of cool tech I mentioned earlier on to something that creates real value and impact to our customers' operations. Now, these are some of the benefit ranges you can see and read on this slide that customers are seeing, ranging from, the mean time, or reducing the mean time to repair, and reducing first time fix rates, which are very much service orientated type component. But scrap and rework, which have major impacts in terms of the operating margins of business. We have quite at times profound effects. One of our customers actually is operating in a smart and connected way. So their products are connected together. And not only are they connected together, but they are also providing that input, the performance of the information in real time using augmented reality around the device in the manufacturing environment. So that is their customer is actually in the manufacturer, the OEM, is seeing the sensors and the results coming up using AR, but it also guided maintenance instructions as well. So if something is predicted to fail, it guides the instructor, the operator at the customer side to actually do this repair. This is industrial equipment, by the way. This is not toys. Now, what's the impact that has had on the business? Well, in that business alone, over the first year, they saved $40 million of service costs and actually needed to conduct 5,000 less customer service visits. Now, that's significant because actually that has reduced the overall service cost of that organization by 4%. Now, this isn't an organizational benefit. This is actually just on one of their product lines. So given the impact that that's had on their organization, they are now looking to deploy that across the remaining product lines to achieve that similar sort of impact and benefit across the entire organization. So when we see augmented reality now and applying that to the situation that many of our companies and yourselves, I'm sure, are facing today, then we see three major use cases that are coming to the fore of how augmented reality is really helping businesses take a step forward. The first one is around how we connect workforces together to share that knowledge and to share that experience and create that remote support capability and collaboration. Now, this is an interesting thing because as we look at COVID, this has really brought this case to life. But in many cases, our workers and workforces, the real experiences in that age are that at risk group, and that experience, therefore, the experienced workforce is actually really unable to travel to customers or even train customers and train the new people in a normal way because of the social distancing requirements and the risk that they have to that aging workforce. So this experience, we need to connect together. So we have capabilities around augmented reality that connect people together, that allow us to share, almost like imagine a FaceTime video on steroids, but also allowing people to highlight and move and guide through this. And this really has a major impact in the productivity of the workforce, mentoring, more junior people that are able to go onto site to perform operations which they may not have the depth and experience around, but also helping customers as well deal with some of the issues remotely, but in a cost-effective and a timely manner, which improves customer satisfaction. The next area is about then, how do we train? So we talked about this at the beginning, about that aging workforce and passing that knowledge on. So we saw in that video earlier on about how we can now capture that in through videos and instructions and placements and really help people guide through that working, that operating procedure, either in manufacturing or in the service environment, and produce that in a very cost-effective way and an easy way to maintain and distribute, to the workforce. So you no longer have to attend a classroom and get your binder from it, but now you have access to the information using new technologies like SaaS, so you're able to connect to that remotely. And the final area is about capturing and optimizing those workflows. So how do you actually understand and disseminate that process improvement ideas rapidly to the organization? So if the first two are around connecting experience and also training people, the continuous improvement environment, how do you get that knowledge out and spread that across the organization in a remote way? So we can actually capture those new and optimized critical workflows effectively. And as I said, the many new procedures and new ways of working that organizations are going through right now because of the restrictions we're operating on, this sort of capability, both in terms of improving, but also how instructions on how to maintain the health and safety of your workforce is so, so critical. Now, I want to bring this to life and these elements to life now in a real world example. Now, this real world example is the UK ventilator challenge, and I had the honor a few weeks ago to present with Microsoft and GKN about the work we've done together on this. Now, as I'm sure we've many places around the world, many countries have had to create almost new collaborations where they never existed before because of the COVID crisis. And in the manufacturing realm, one of the areas of focus has been the production of ventilators and the significant increase and requirement of that. In fact, in the UK, there was a requirement to produce, I think, in total, over 5,000 additional ventilators to support the need in the hospital system. Now, to do that, the Prime Minister of the UK, Mr. Boris Johnson, he called for this challenge and manufacturers and suppliers to collaborate and connect like they've never done before, supported by the UK government, to try and rapidly address this gap of requirements around the ventilators. And this organisation, it said Ventilator UK Challenge, really their job was to actually then create and connect these organisations together. Now, PTC, together with Microsoft, worked with two companies, Smiths Medical and GKN, to look at how they could actually capture that knowledge and actually move the production. Now, Smiths Medical had a ventilator called the ProPack 310. Now, that ProPack 310 is really a product, it's a leading product. But how did they shift this experience and knowledge from a medical device manufacturer to a company like GKN that is used to producing aerospace equipment? So we partnered with those organizations to capture that knowledge in the production environment from Smiths Medical and look at how that information could be passed over to GKN Aerospace to ramp up and set up the production for the high number of those ventilators. Now, typically that required a training of the existing GKN workforce. And a number of these people, and the assembly process itself takes around 24 hours per ventilator. So together with GKN and Smiths, PTC and Microsoft, PTC actually managed to transfer 23 different standard operating procedures, and using the HoloLens technology from Microsoft, captured those as critical assembly process steps and processes. And we were able to effectively transfer that information from Smiths to GKN into a new manufacturing facility called the Rapid Manufacturing Ventilator Systems, or RMVS. Now, this ability to transfer knowledge and rapidly establish new manufacturing processes was only possible through the use of these technologies that are around augmented reality. Because if we had to capture the traditional methods in paper form, pass those over, train people in a way that we couldn't do because of the restrictions of COVID and the travel restrictions and the lockdown, that was impossible to do. So using AR, capturing that knowledge, that transfer, and rapidly establishing that new manufacturing capability was uniquely enabled by augmented reality. Now, when we apply that, this is we think, okay, yeah, is this a one-off situation? Well, actually, I would argue not, because with the current crisis, one of the trends that we're seeing with many of our industrial customers is the ability to bring their supply chains closer to where they are manufacturing. Often this is termed reshoring and bringing back outsourced manufacturing to the same location. Now, when you do that, you need to reestablish rapidly new supply bases, new manufacturing facilities. So again, augmented reality in this context is equally applicable to that same situation. So I've spent the past few minutes hopefully bringing to life how augmented reality is really helping our customers around the world address a number of the challenges they're facing in the current crisis, but also how augmented reality is now creating significant value in the new normal as a consequence of that great reset I mentioned at the beginning. So I really thank you for listening to me for the last 20 minutes or so. It's been a great honor to speak to you all. Now, if you want more information about what PTC does around augmented reality, please feel free to visit us at ptc.com. Or I have my email address on the screen right now. So give me a call or just drop me an email, and I'll be more than happy to get back in contact and speak with you all. So once again, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening to me today.